All right, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on today's webinar, Giving Tuesday, Donor Engagement Essentials. Here at Mobile Cause, we are committed to supporting your local United Way, whether it's running your organization, planning your fundraising initiatives, or just better connecting with your donors. And with Giving Tuesday being one of the most impactful giving days of the year, we wanted to give you the tools to win over the hearts and minds of your supporters and be their nonprofit of choice on this International Day of Giving. As always, we'll be sending a recording of this webinar and the webinar slides to all registrants via email. If you have any questions during the presentation, just submit those questions over in the questions box of the webinar on the right-hand side of your screen there. And if your webinar panel minimizes during the session, simply click that orange button with the white arrow in it to reopen it and access that questions menu. All right, so without further ado, let me introduce today's panel of speakers. Katie Keating is a digital fundraising and advocacy professional with 8 years of experience creating positive fundraising outcomes for a variety of nonprofits. The last 3 years, she has specialized her efforts helping countless United Ways make a bigger difference in their communities through technology. Sarah Baker has extensive experience supporting and consulting United Ways on their digital and online giving strategies that drive maximum impact. She also brings 5 years of social media and online marketing experience from both the nonprofit and for-profit sectors. Thank you both for joining us today. And now they're excited to bring you an information-filled agenda that will leave you confident to kick off your planning for an amazing Giving Tuesday campaign. During the webinar, you'll learn some must-have elements of the successful Giving Tuesday campaign, top 5 Giving Tuesday social media tips, how to inspire your supporters to expand your reach, and you'll hear about 2 replicable stories from fellow United Ways. To conclude our event, we'll have a Q&A session to answer your questions. And again, please submit any of those questions into that questions box on your control panel throughout the presentation. Now, before we get started, I actually have a quick poll that I want to launch. So looking at the question here on the screen, I'll actually launch this polling interface. What has been the biggest challenge you've faced so far on Giving Tuesday? So go ahead and select directly on your screen there and hit the submit button at the bottom. And we'll leave this poll open for about 30 seconds. We just want to get an accurate kind of summary from our audience here. And then I'll share those results with you. Cool. Leave it open for another 5 seconds or so. Going once, going twice. Excellent. Let me go ahead and close that out, and I'll share the results. So, by the way, the clear winner here is we have not yet participated in a Giving Tuesday. And out of those that have, it looks like Creating Compelling Content is the winner. So, any comments from our speakers on these results?
Yes, thanks, Alex. It's actually really kind of exciting to see that people have not participated in Giving Tuesday. I think we'll be providing a lot of information to help you set up your events, or sorry, your campaigns and where to start. And definitely a big focus that we're having today is about creating compelling content, because you'll hear this repeated throughout this webinar, but storytelling is definitely a key part of Giving Tuesday, and that really starts today. So compelling content is definitely integral into your campaign, and we're going to go over that and how it can help you promote your cause. So compelling content is definitely the start of everything.
Awesome. Well, with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and hide these results. And without further ado, I'm going to pass things over to Katie to kind of begin our presentation.
Thanks, Alex, and hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So I'm going to start today with basically kind of square one with Giving Tuesday, looking ahead to it and really planning to get things going. So what we'll do here is kind of, where do you start with Giving Tuesday? So the key to Giving Tuesday is just starting to plan now. So you'll see on the screen we have a number of resources that you can use for research. You don't want to wait until the last minute to start planning your Giving Tuesday. As I said before, the storytelling that makes Giving Tuesday successful really starts now. So by starting now and starting your planning, you'll get a great jump start. But you can access toolkits and case studies from Mobile Cause, But really a great first step is just registering yourself on givingtuesday.org. They'll have a number of resources for you that you'll be able to download, ways to integrate with your logos. You'll be able to subscribe to their blog to get tips. That way they'll keep you going with other strategies throughout this campaign. What it will also help is figure out how you can really integrate this into your community as well. So you can see if there are other events that are happening within your community. That's something you'll want to check with other nonprofits, see if they're running something to support Giving Tuesday, if you can get your United Way involved with it as well. But a great place to start with all of this is just givingtuesday.org. That way you can join their mailing list, get registered, be up to date on all of the information, and also know what all of their hashtags are and things of that nature, which again, we'll talk about that more with the social media tips. But knowing how givingtuesday.org, which is really organizing all of this, what they're doing and what they're planning and how they're using the hashtags is going to be important, so then you're included in everything that they're doing, and when people are searching for information, you're popping up as one of the nonprofits involved in Giving Tuesday. That's a really critical component to just getting started. Making sure you're on the list of nonprofits will make sure you're included. So that's step one of just getting registered. From there, then it's looking at how you're planning your actual strategy. So now you're registered for Giving Tuesday. You know the hashtags that you should be using. You're looking at the blogs. You're connected with other events in your community. But really, what is your ask on Giving Tuesday? What are you doing? So this is where I recommend sitting down with a group of people. If you have certain stakeholders within your United Way, and just asking a couple questions. What is your biggest need? What would be the greatest thing that you could accomplish on Giving Tuesday? Are you already raising money for homeless shelters within your community? Are you starting an adopt-a family? Is there, or is it just you're hoping it would be nice to raise a little extra money for a specific fund? What would be the success that you would like to see on Giving Tuesday? Because once you figure out what it is that you would like to have happen, then you can work backwards from there and ensuring that it is happening. So once you know what it is, then you'll see on the screen we have a couple just steps to figure out the next steps from what your biggest need is. So once you know what your biggest need is, who can help? Do you have specific groups that like to support that need? So if you're saying, oh, you know what, we actually would love to help with our Adopt a Family Christmas campaign. This would be a great kickoff to just get more money and kick off the Adopt a Family. Who helps support that? Are there certain companies that you work with that are big fans of this, that they would be willing to help with the kickoff? Are there volunteering groups that you work with, certain affinity groups that would like to help with that? And identifying those groups and making a list will then make it easier for you to go into the next step, which is figuring out your storytelling. So how can they help you tell the story? What information can you provide to them to make that make it clear what your ask will be and how you and what your goal is during the day. But these couple questions just to start are the best way, because you don't want to get too overwhelmed too quickly. Knowing your specific goals and your specific needs are going to make every other step of this process a lot easier. So once you've identified kind of what you want and where you want to go, the next step is really starting to tell your story. So here at Mobile Cause, most of you are familiar that we send text messages and we work with social media, and that there's a lot of different tools to help support you. And that's a really critical component of Giving Tuesday, because your storytelling should go out across lots of different venues, because your supporters are found in lots of different areas. So sometimes they see you over social media, maybe they're reacting to your direct mail pieces, maybe they prefer your email campaigns. And then you can also add text messaging into this as well. But the idea is, in the weeks leading up to Giving Tuesday, you want to let them know how you've already been successful. So what is the impact that you've already been providing in your community? If we use the Adopt a Family story example, do you have pictures from last year's Adopt a Family that you can share? Do you have stories of how they've been, how it benefited them? Do you have other just videos that you can share, maybe of cute kids talking about their presence and how excited they were. How can you, and so gathering those materials that show the impact of what you've done and starting to release those, whether it's over social media, whether it's Instagram, direct mail, your website, email, getting all of that out there, because you want people to be aware of what your impact is and how successful you are. Because the idea is, if people know that you've been successful, then when you're making that ask on Giving Tuesday, they're going to donate a lot quicker, because they're like, oh yeah, of course I want to donate to adopt a family again. I already know that the United Way was so successful last year. But if you just waited until the last minute and just said, hey, donate to us, your donors aren't going to be aware of who you are or really what success you've seen, so they're less likely to donate. So this storytelling in the weeks leading up to Giving Tuesday is a critical component. And we just recommend thinking through kind of what items do you have and where can you share those things to make sure everybody is aware of kind of what you've done and the impact you've had. So the next step is, once you've identified the materials that you have, it's really what channels are your fundraiser or your donors at? Who are you wanting to target? So you'll see here we have kind of a high-level overview of what these different channels, who's on these different channels. So Facebook, you're getting anyone really over the age of 18. Twitter has mostly young men. And LinkedIn is focused on giving professionals. Instagram is mostly people who are under 35. And we're providing this to you because it can be helpful in terms of thinking of who you want to target. So is there a certain, if you know, like, well, we have a large professional base, so let's make sure to share it over LinkedIn. That way we can harness those professional people and make sure they're donating. Or if you're on the other side, you're like, well, you know what, we would love to get more millennials involved in our campaigns. Maybe you want to look at Instagram a little bit more and look into sharing there. A critical component of this that I want to be very clear on, when we're talking about sharing over social media, it's not just your social media. It's not just the United Way of X county is sharing this with its followers. You really want to identify your supporters who would be willing to share this as well. So maybe you don't have a LinkedIn presence as much. That's okay. But if you know you have a good supporter or a good company, good sponsor, your affinity group, someone like that, and they are very active on LinkedIn, then you would want to talk to them about sharing it over LinkedIn and work with them on how you can, what materials they're willing to share and how they can make that ask over LinkedIn. So when you think of social media, don't just think about your social media presence. It's really about your supporters and your sponsors' social media presence as well. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Sarah, who's going to talk more about how you can really use social media to help support this.
Great, thanks, Katie. So our first tip that we're going to review today on your social media is starting to plan out pre-creating your content ahead of time. So right now you're at the perfect place to start planning out your content calendar of the content that you're going to post on social media leading up to and on Giving Tuesday. So when you're creating these posts, you want to include a mix of different things like we were talking about before. So a mix of stories, talk about what you guys have accomplished in the past year, where donations that have come through in the past year have gone to, talk about events that you've had, maybe your Day of Caring, or events with your affinity groups like your Women United and Emerging Leaders group. And when you're pre-creating this content, some of the other pieces you'll want to create maybe are even some progress updates that you can schedule for Giving Tuesday. So when you've reached 25, 50%, 75%, and 100% of your goals. The other content you'll want to pre-create is going to be your donation ask. So in your donation ask, you'll of course include the links back to your donation form or your website, wherever you have that embedded. And when you're creating these pieces of content, one of the most important things, like Katie was mentioning earlier, is planning out who you're targeting and where you're going to post these different updates on your different social channels. So when you're planning for your different social channels, as we talked about, there are different groups of people on Facebook versus Twitter versus LinkedIn and Instagram. So a helpful exercise that you can go through is creating donor personas. So maybe sit down with your staff, your board members, and try to think about who you're targeting where. So maybe on Facebook, you're targeting Susie, the soccer mom, and Susie is really concerned about improving the education in her community because her kids are in elementary school. So you can target your post to her and talk about how United Way is helping improve education in your specific local community. The other thing you want to include when you're pre-creating your content is hashtags in your post. So one of the important things to think about is what hashtags you want to use. Ideally, you typically want to limit your use of hashtags to 2 hashtags. So I'd recommend using the generic hashtag Giving Tuesday and hashtag Live United. While you can localize your hashtags, you're going to be found more and show up on places like Twitter and Instagram by using the more generic hashtags that the other nonprofits are also using. The other content that you'll want to pre-create as well as create on the actual day of Giving Tuesday is live video. So you can pre-create pre-recorded videos, showing behind the scenes of what you do at United Way, help people become more familiar with the behind the scenes. Maybe take a video at your Link or Emerging Leaders group meetings to just show exactly what it's like to be part of the United Way. The other thing you can do on Giving Tuesday is use Facebook Live or Instagram stories to talk about, again, what you've been doing in the community, why it's important for people to make a donation on Giving Tuesday, and even promote your text to donate keyword in your live videos. If you're going to be working on Giving Tuesday with a local radio or TV station, this is another great place where you can show the behind the scenes of your United Way staff person at the radio station or at the TV station making that donation up. And when we talk about videos, don't stress about these having to be overly professional videos. You can create this video using your iPhone, using your staff members, incorporate your different groups, your board members, your most, dedicated volunteers, and everyone that is working with you guys on a regular basis, because they're going to be able to speak to your stories, going back to the aspect of storytelling, in the most genuine way. So speaking of your dedicated volunteers, your board members, these people are your influencers. So here again, we have a nice little worksheet kind of aspect where you want to start listing out who are the people in your community that can not only, retweet your post, share your Facebook post, but also create their own social media campaigns promoting your Giving Tuesday donation form and website. So I've been working with other United Ways, and one of their biggest takeaways is that having an influencer in your community sharing out your posts is equally, if not more important than posting on your own channel. As Katie mentioned earlier, you might not have a big presence yet on Instagram or be present on social media, but maybe one of your board members is a CEO of a large company, or some of the campaign directors that you work with at various companies, they can post about your Giving Tuesday, as well as, add in their personal touch of their unique experience working with your United Way. So I'd recommend, again, taking some time to start looking through all of your board members, your volunteers, people in your community, and make a personal ask of them on and leading up to Giving Tuesday to share your post, provide them with your links, your text to donate keywords, so that they can include that in their content. And of course, remind them about your hashtags. So again, when we talk about pre-creating content like graphics with your progress of reaching 50% of your goal, 75% of your goal, you don't need to stress about this being overly professional content. As Katie mentioned, on givingtuesday.org, You can find some images that you can use, along with your social media posts. And there's a number of tools available to make this really easy for you to create graphics that help tell your story, help show your progress to your goal. There's also tools available that are for scheduling your social media posts. So of course, the time leading up to and on Giving Tuesday is super busy. So with that pre-created content that you're going to start working on now, you can schedule those out in tools like Hootsuite, which allow you to pre-schedule your social media content. So all of your donation asks, your storytelling, the pictures and videos you want to share, a lot of that can be scheduled out ahead of time. So when it comes time to Giving Tuesday, you can just focus on your live videos and not have to worry about posts going out on time. And using your mobile cause app, of course, you can pre-schedule out text messages to be sent as well. So in addition to using social media, the other place you can use is your mobile cause platform and schedule out messages to be sent directly to your past donors, volunteers, and board members. So again, don't get overwhelmed when it starts to come to creating the content, because you guys have the tools and the capability. It's right at your fingertips. It's just about accessing it. So I'm going to pass it back to Katie, and she's going to focus on, helping you guys start to develop some strategies to increase your donations leading up to and on Giving Tuesday.
Thanks, Sarah. So now we're going to look a little bit more at the tools that specifically within Mobile Cause that can really help you plan this out and how to work with those. So the first step is, how are you encouraging your supporters? So as Sarah just mentioned, a lot of United Ways and other organizations see a lot of their success come from their social media influencers sharing out their content. So this is a big, important part of encouraging your ambassadors, your social media influencers or ambassadors to share out your content. Some of them will do it really, really well, and some of them will need a little bit more coaching. So this is something that you want to keep in mind as you're preparing this content, is you don't want to just say, hey, we'd love for you to share this post. You really want to be specific and walk them through why it's important and what they should be sharing. Because the more you prepare them, the more successful they will be with it. You always want to keep in mind that the people who are helping you fundraise usually aren't professional fundraisers. They're extremely passionate about what you do and they want to help, but they don't necessarily know the best practices in fundraising and how to share it effectively. So you just want to make sure you're giving them training and also holding them accountable. If you are talking with a campaign manager at one of your companies and they haven't shared out in a tool, or you've noticed that, you can always just check in with them, like saying, hey, I just wanted to make sure all of the content that we talked about sharing today has worked well for you. Let me know if you have any questions. Sometimes people are having problems with it and they are afraid to speak up, or they've just gotten busy. So just having check-ins with your social media ambassadors and your influencers is a critical part of this, and something they'll really appreciate from you too, because it will help them learn more about how to be an effective ambassador for you, and will make them feel more empowered long-term. So providing them training, having them share on selfies, having them share your stories, and also having them do their own Facebook Live stories and Instagram stories. We've seen a bunch of these recently. I actually saw one with some of the hurricane relief. There was a television studio who was doing a telethon, and so they were broadcasting it on TV, obviously, but then they would also do Facebook Live broadcasts as well, showing the behind the scenes of the telethon and telling people to text in. So that's something you can do as well, just keeping people engaged. Again, as Sarah said before, having fun little Facebook Live videos, not only on your social media, but also your company's social media of how people are helping, can really get people engaged and excited. So taking a step from your social media ambassadors, I want to talk a little bit about text to give and how you can help support, how text to donate can help support your campaigns. So with text to donate, you want to make sure you figure out the best areas that this would be useful for. So for example, if a radio station is coming to you saying they want to help on Giving Tuesday, then you want to provide them the text to donate tool so that they can, while they're on the air throughout the day, saying, hey, today for Giving Tuesday, we are supporting United Way. They help provide education and support in our community. To donate, text Live United to 41444. So providing them that resource makes the most sense because people, when they're listening to the radio, they aren't usually on the internet, they aren't on their desktop, so having them text in the quickest and easiest way for them to get that donation form on their cell phone. So identifying those areas where text to donate is the logical choice for people to get the donation form will help you provide these resources to your radio stations or to your TV stations, or any press releases that you might be giving out are also a great place to incorporate text to give. With text to give within Mobile Cause, when people text in, they also do get 3 reminder messages to complete those donations. So 1 day, 4 days, and 8 days after the event. So that's helping you, like, even though Giving Tuesday may be over, people still get reminder messages to complete that donation and can help support you even after the event. So keep in mind that you do have that text to give option, and that it can make sense in certain situations for this to be a resource with your Giving Tuesday campaign. Another important tool for this is your website donation form. So when you're giving a call to action, whether it's on the radio, on TV, or within companies who may be supporting you, having a website can be very helpful. So that a website donation form can be very helpful, and that way they have some place to go. So if it's unitedway.org/givingtuesday or unitedway.org/donate, that way people can go and find your site, and they will make sure and complete a donation there. And keeping it really simple too, so that way people don't have to complete a lot of information. They can just put in their name, phone number, email, and their credit card information and complete a donation. We see that reducing fields, especially on a day where Giving Tuesday, where it's a lot of impulse giving, reducing the number of fields can help increase the overall submissions. So that it's giving you those little extra, that extra money. And also making sure that you have a mobile-friendly donation form. So as much as we talk about having a website donation form, you want to keep in mind that people can be looking at your website from any device. So they could be on their desktop, they could be on their tablet, they could be on their cell phone. So making sure that you have a mobile responsive website form, that way it will adapt to all of any device that they are on. This will make it easier for them to complete a donation, and therefore more likely to complete a donation. But having those steps will make it easier for your donors to give, and then it also makes it easier for your supporters to share these pages as well and increase your donations overall. So another key component of this is thanking your donors. And this is something that you want to include no matter what time of year it is, but really around Giving Tuesday, it's super helpful. So thanking your donors, this can be a video that you put on the thank you page. And this is something we can help you set up. So when you have your mobile optimized donation form, you can put a thank you from the CEO of your company, or just from volunteers, or just cute kids who are benefiting from your program. But having a thank you is very important because it's restarting that engagement process with your donors. If people don't feel like their donation is valuable, then they're not going to give again. And what's nice with Giving Tuesday is it's very much a viral campaign. It's very much meant to bring in new donors and be engaging to people. So leaving people, these new donors, with a good taste in their mouth is going to be critical for you to re-engage them for end of year giving, or just any other campaigns throughout the year. So making sure you thank your donors, whether it's a video, just a special email message, and following up with them too, letting them know even weeks after Giving Tuesday, if you've used the money for Adopt a Family or whatever the campaign might be, showing them pictures. People want that information. They want to know what their donation went towards. And the more you can share that information with them, the easier it's going to make future donation asks. So even though we're talking about Giving Tuesday right now, keeping all of this strategy in mind because this is all really applicable to any other campaign that you're running, and especially this thanking your donors, because if they aren't thanked and they don't know what their money went towards, they're less likely to come back and donate for another campaign later on. So having a thank you makes it a lot easier for you to re-engage them for hopefully an end of year ask later on, but just future campaigns in general. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Sarah, who's going to talk about some of our past United Way Giving Tuesday stories.
Thanks, Katie. So both of these United Way use cases are United Ways who used Mobile Cause to support their 2016 Giving Tuesday campaign. So the first United Way that we're going to talk about is United Way of Greater Knoxville. So United Way of Greater Knoxville focused on the theme of double your local impact. So you can see on the screen here their donation landing pages that they created in Mobile Cause using the crowdfunding and peer-to-peer fundraising tool. So on these pages, they listed out how your donation could affect your local community. So, you know, $5 equals this value in the community. So some easy tips that they provided that you guys can follow is in your email signatures for the month of November and even leading into the end of year, you can include a hyperlinked graphic, so a graphic that links back to your website donation form or your donation form through Mobile Cause with your text to donate keyword on the graphic. So adding this to your email signature is something, again, really easy to create with some of the free tools that are available to you. And it's something that you can do for free to add a passive ask to all the emails that you're sending out. Something else that United Way of Greater Knoxville focused on is running an email marketing campaign 1 week leading up to Giving Tuesday. So this email marketing campaign went out to their past donors, as well as their volunteers and their staff members. They started raising money even before Giving Tuesday. So when people went to their donation form, they were able to see a progress bar showing that some funds had already been raised. To ensure that funds also came through on Giving Tuesday, they sent a second email out on the day. Another tip that they had is to put higher donation amounts than they typically would on their donation form to help encourage donors to increase the amount that they give and to increase the funds raised. Now, one of the most crucial aspects of the United Way of Greater Knoxville Giving Tuesday campaign for 2016 is they found a match through one of their board members, Amy Miles, the CEO of Regal Cinemas, offered a dollar for dollar match, which went along with their theme of doubling your impact in your local community. So thanks to the match, they were able to, specifically promote and target their past donors to, their dollars, went twice as far as it typically would thanks to the match. So, of course, right now is a perfect time to start thinking about, is it possible for you to find a match from someone in your local community, be it someone on your board or one of the companies in your community, the local radio or TV station? Is there someone that will be willing to offer you guys a match? And, like we mentioned earlier, something that they did is created digital, social, and print ads focus on their United Way. These don't even have to be ads focused on Giving Tuesday, but they were ads that were shown throughout the community through the month of November just to keep the United Way of Greater Knoxville on the minds of their donors and community members. So when they were making this ask, that it was familiar and people were like, oh yeah, United Way of Greater Knoxville. I just saw on Facebook the impact that they have in my specific community. So our next example and case study is from the Granite United Way. So this is, a smaller United Way who ran a mostly text to donate campaign. So if you want to see this campaign on your phone, you can actually send in a text message now to the number 41444. And in the text message body, their keyword is give to, GUW, all one word. So how they promoted this was using a local radio station and TV station to put out that text to donation ask. And their big takeaway from last year's Giving Tuesday campaign was that having a very specific goal, like Katie mentioned earlier, helped the donors really connect with the campaign. So their specific cause for 2016 that they're going to repeat in 2017 was purchasing books for local kids in their community. So all the funds went to purchasing books. So leading up to Giving Tuesday, they sat down with their board members and made the donation ask to them first. So they started with a smaller group. And during that board meeting, they also, of course, made the ask of those board members to share this campaign out on social media. So you can see here they use the text to donate, an online donation form, and the fundraising thermometer to really push this with their community members. So again, some of the key highlights, really similar to what we've talked about before, is the importance of sharing that content on social media and through email, and by utilizing your United Way ambassadors and staff members to share this out. So you want to make this campaign go as viral as possible in your local community. Again, they took advantage of local radio and TV stations to make this app live on Giving Tuesday, which allowed them to raise about $2,400. And putting that in terms of their specific cause, they were able to purchase about 700 books for kids in their local community. And with the 2016 campaign, after Giving Tuesday, something that they did, which is going back to Katie's thanking donors, is they took videos of their board members and their ambassadors handing these books out to kids in the community and reading them to them. So they took a variety of photos that they were able to share on Facebook, as well as videos that they're now going to incorporate into their 2017 campaign to really show, what they did last year and try to double their goals for this year. So, this year we talked about at the beginning of the presentation that many of you have not participated in Giving Tuesday. So you might not necessarily have content like this, but it's something good to keep in mind. So if you set a goal similar to this United Way of purchasing 700 books or maybe purchasing coats for kids in your community, don't forget after Giving Tuesday to record some of that. Take photos and videos. Again, these don't have to be professional, and share them out on Facebook so that your donors can really see where their money went and they can see the impact that they had in their community by giving to their local United Way. So now, Alex, we have our next poll that we want to run right now. So you guys can see the poll questions up on the screen.
Indeed, and I'll go ahead and I'll launch the actual interface. So if you want to go ahead and select your response, in what ways does your nonprofit need the most technical support for Giving Tuesday? So here, select your responses, hit the submit button there, and we'll share those results. And I just want to remind everybody as this poll is being filled out, if you have questions for us in regards to anything that was discussed, just type that into the questions area. We're going to be taking some time for Q&A coming up in a couple minutes here, so definitely want to have an engaging session there. And we're waiting for a handful more poll responses. I'll leave it open for another 10 seconds or so. Excellent. Going once, going twice. All right, let me close this out, and I'll share the results. So the majority of you, at least the winner here in terms of percentage, was converting one-time donors into recurring donors. Then next up was synchronized multimedia communication and promotion. multi-channel communication.
Yeah, so thanks, Alice, for running the poll. So that's really interesting, focusing on converting your one-time donors into recurring donors. So I think this really goes back to your storytelling and making sure that people understand why they need to give, not only on Giving Tuesday, but throughout the year. So yes, giving on Tuesday might help purchase books, but giving throughout the year is also going to support your classrooms. It's going to support, all the different areas that you guys are focused on. So it's really important to communicate that with your donors so they understand. And then in terms of mobile cause, of course, we can have recurring options highlighted on your donation form, and you can even preset the recurring option as the default for your donors. So you can, encourage them to make a recurring gift with language specifically on your donation form as well as in your social media channels. And just to speak about, synchronizing the multi-channel communication, so this really goes back to one of the slides we had up earlier talking about some of those tools that are available to you. So there are tools available to you that helps you pre-schedule out these messages. So what you can do is just put together, a really simple Word document or an Excel spreadsheet of all the different content that you want to create, and then copy and paste that content into these schedulers that can schedule across all the different social media platforms that you're using.
Excellent. Cool. Let me go ahead and hide these results. And Sarah and Katie, thank you so much for your insight and your knowledge. And we're going to change gears here a little bit now, and we do want to take a few minutes just to answer any questions that folks have. So again, feel free to type those questions into the questions menu. We have a stack already queued up, ready to go. So we're going to start with a question here for Katie. Can you give me some more ideas on how to use text messaging for Giving Tuesday?
Sure, absolutely. So with text messaging, what you want to keep in mind is that text messages are read about 98% of the time. So you're pretty much guaranteed that messages are going to be read, which is fabulous, obviously. But with that, you want to focus on using text messages for engagement tools. So it's basically something that will get you excited to look at the other materials, because what we see with text messages is when you send a text message before like a social media post or before an email, then you have more clicks on your email and you have more engagement with your social media post. So having it, providing engagement in your social media, in your text message is really important. And now your question is probably, what is engagement? So that's a specific statistic or a specific video around what your cause is and what your storytelling is really all about. So for example, maybe it's talking about, since it's during the month of November, you can send a text message out on Thanksgiving saying, thanks to you, United Way was able to help feed 5,000 families in our communities. Thanks so much for your support. Something that's really to the point and specific will be something that's impactful to them. That's what's important. You want to avoid text messages that are like, click here to read our newsletter or things like that. You want it to be very specific and provide value to them. So statistics are really good, videos are really good, and really links to your social media are great as well. So if you're sharing out content, like you have a super cute video of, like if we're using the Granite United Way as an example, a good text message this year would be to send out video from one of the kids reading a book from last year, saying, hey, thanks, just a reminder of all the good we got to do last year. Click here to see a link to the video. Things like that are very specific and very engaging towards your cause, because that's helping gets them excited. So then they'll engage with social media, they'll engage with email. Eventually you'll make a donation ask as well, but really focusing on engagement through text message is what we see most successful.
Excellent. Thank you, Katie. Next question here is for Sarah. How do we stand out when so many other nonprofits are also trying to get donations on this day?
Wow, that's a great question. So, Giving Tuesday, of course, is a very crowded day for nonprofits, and there are going to be a lot of donation asks. So I think where you stand out is, of course, starting your content now, starting your storytelling now on your social media. And of course, really focus on what you do. So of course, you're a local United Way. So focus really locally on, how you're going to help in the community, what you've done in the past. And, like I mentioned earlier, and like Katie's been talking about, sharing out those engaging stories through text messaging, on your social media, in your email campaign. That's what's going to help you stay on the top of mind by reminding people of where the United Way makes an impact in their community where they live. So of course, there might be other nonprofits they care about, but you want to remind them how they are helping better their communities, their schools, by donating to your United Way.
Okay, next question is for Katie, and this is kind of a culmination of a couple different questions, actually. So we got several folks mentioning that they were teams of one, right? And obviously this is a bit of a daunting program for those of you that have not quite taken part in it yet, that have the content available. But for those smaller teams, what should be focused on, Katie? Like what should they do with the limited resources and time that they have?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and it's something we hear often. I know today Sarah and I definitely covered a lot of content and gave a lot of resources, but I think the important thing is to take all of that and just start back at square one, which is, what would you like to see most? What would be most helpful? And then that really helps dictate the next steps, because once you decide, all right, what would be most helpful on Giving Tuesday, then figuring out who can help me with that, who are my social media ambassadors, once you have those two questions answered, it can help dictate the rest of the campaign. So that's a good planning method to start out. Also, within Mobile Cause, for those of you who are signed up or are thinking of signing up, we do also have digital marketing services where they can help you create a campaign. We have specific we have a team, myself and Sarah, as well as other people who can help you plan out this campaign. So you don't have to be just a team of one. You can join Team Mobile Cause, and we can help you create those campaigns and make sure you're really thinking this through. So it doesn't have to seem so overwhelming, because it can be quite simple and quite effective. So either starting with your plans of what's our biggest need and who can help us, but then also coming to Mobile Cause as well. We can provide digital marketing services to help with that.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, and looks like our last question today is for Sarah. So we should start fundraising before Giving Tuesday. Won't donors get annoyed?
I think when you want to start creating your engaging content, and some of the fundraising that would happen before Giving Tuesday, I'd say, is going to be focused on influential members of your community. So pre-fundraising with your board members, smaller segmented groups, pre-fundraising maybe with some companies that you work with, approaching them in the sense of going to them for a potential match, coming to them for support on sharing out on social media. So of course, yes, you're absolutely correct. We don't want to overwhelm our donors, and Giving Tuesday is a specific day, but we want to, sort of set the stage for Giving Tuesday. So I would say when we talk about fundraising leading up to Giving Tuesday, it's going to be, think about Giving Tuesday as a culmination. It's the grand finale of this donation. Although, of course, it can also continue on in the next couple of days with fulfillment reminder text messages and outreach to make sure people fulfill their donations. But yes, you want to make sure that you don't overwhelm people with too many donation asks. Focus on engaging and compelling content that leads them to make that donation on Giving Tuesday.
Excellent. Now, just a reminder to all of our attendees today, Mobile Cause provides an innovative suite of digital fundraising and donor engagement solutions that help nonprofits do more good. So to speak directly to your United Way expert about implementing Mobile Cause software and strategy for your organization, just email unitedway mobilecause.com, or visit mobilecause.com/who-we-serve/United-way/. So gotta keep those forward slashes and those dashes in there, but you can see the website is displayed here on the slide. All right, so that's about all we have time for today. I wanted to give a huge thank you and shout out to our presenters for their knowledge and for taking the time to put together some thoughts today. And I also wanted to thank all of our attendees for taking the time out of their afternoons or mornings to jump in and learn a little bit about our solution. So you'll receive the webinar recording and slide presentation here shortly. And stay tuned for Giving Tuesday's infographic and an ebook in the coming weeks. That all being said, thanks everyone. Have a great day and see you next month. Cheers.